Gudbrand on the Hillside. Once upon a time there was a man whose name was Gudbrand. He had a farm which lay far, far away upon a hillside, and so they called him Gudbrand on the Hillside. Now you must know this man and his good wife lived so happily together and understood another so well that all the husband and the wife thought was so well done there was nothing like it in the world, and she was always pleased at whatever he turned his hand to. The farm was their own land, and they had $100 lying at the bottom of their chest, and 2 cows tethered up in a stall in their farmyard. So one day his wife said to Gudbrand, "Do you know, dear, I think we ought to take one of our cows into town and sell it, and that's what I think, for when we shall have some money in hand, and such well-to-do people as we ought to have ready money as other folks have. As for the $100 in the chest yonder, we can't make a hole in our savings, and I'm sure I don't know what we want with more than 1 cow. Besides, we shall gain a little in another way, for then I shall get off with only looking after 1 cow instead of having, as now, to feed and litter and water too." Well, Gudbrand thought his wife talked right good sense, so he set off at once with a cow on the way to town to sell her. But when he got to the town, there was no one who would buy his cow. "Well, well, never mind," said Gudbrand. "At the worst I can only go back home with my cow. I've both stable and tether for her, and the road is no farther out than in." And with that he began to toddle home with his cow. But when he had gone a bit of the way, a man met him who had a horse to sell. Gudbrand thought 'twas better to have a horse than a cow, so he traded with the man. A little farther on he met a man walking along, driving a fat pig before him, and he thought it better to have a fat pig than a horse, so he traded with the man. After that he went a little farther, and a man met him with a goat, and he thought it better to have a goat than a pig, and he traded the man who owned the goat. Then he went on a good bit till he met a man who had a sheep, and traded with him too, for he always thought it would be better to have a sheep than a goat. After a while he met a man with a goose, and he traded away the sheep for a goose. And when he had walked a long, long time, he met a man with a cock, and he traded with him, for he thought 'tis surely better to have a cock than a goose. Then he went on till the day was far spent, and he began to get very hungry. So he sold the cock for a shilling, and bought food with the money. For thought Gudbrand on the Hillside, 'twas always better to save one's life than to have a cock. After that he went on homeward till he reached his nearest neighbor's house, where he turned in. "Well," said the owner of the house, "how'd things go with you in town?" "Rather so-so," said Gudbrand. "I can't praise my luck, nor do I blame it either." And with that he told the whole story from first to last. "Ah," said his friend, "you'll get nicely hauled over by the coals when you go home to your wife. Heaven help you. I wouldn't stand in your shoes for anything. "Well," said Gudbrand on the Hillside, "I think things might have gone worse with me now. But now, whether I've done wrong or not, I have so kind a good wife she never has a word to say against anything I do." "Oh," answered his neighbor, "I hear what you say, but I don't believe it for all that." "And so you doubt it?" asked Gudbrand on the Hillside. "Yes," said his friend, "I have 100 crowns at the bottom of my chest at home. I will give you if you can prove what you say." So Gudbrand stayed there till evening, and when it began to get dark, and they went together to his house, and the neighbor was to stand outside the door and listen, while the man went in to his wife. "Good evening," said Gudbrand on the Hillside. "Good evening," said the good wife. "Oh, is that you? Now I am so happy." Then the wife asked how things had gone with him in town. "Oh, only so-so," answered Gudbrand. "Not much to brag of. When I got into town there was no one who would buy the cow. So you know I traded it away for a horse." "For a horse!" said his wife. "Well, that is good of you. Thanks with all my heart. We are so well to do that we may drive it to church just as well as other people. If we choose to keep a horse, we have a right to get one, I should think." So turning to her child, she said, "Run out, dearie, and put out the horse." "Ah," said Gudbrand, "but you see I have not the horse after all, for when I got a bit farther on the road I traded it for a pig." "Think of that now," said the wife. "You just did as I should have done myself. 1,000 thanks. Now I can have a bit of bacon in the house to set before people when they come to see me, that I can. What do we want with a horse? People would only say we got so proud that we couldn't walk to church. Go out, child, and put out the pig in the sty." "But I have not the pig either," said Gudbrand, "for when I got further on I traded it for a goat." "Dear me!" cried the wife. How well you manage everything. Now think it over. What should I do with a pig? People would only point to us and say, yonder they eat up all they have. Now I have a goat, I shall have milk and cheese, and keep the goat too. Run out, child, and put up the goat. Nay, but I haven't the goat either, said Gudbrand, for a little farther on I traded it away and got a fine sheep instead. You don't say so, cried his wife. Why, you do everything to please me, just as if I had been with you. What do we want with a goat? If I had it, I should lose half my time in climbing up and down the hills to get it down. No, if I have a sheep, I shall have both wool and clothing, and fresh meat in the house. Run out, child, and put up the sheep. But I haven't the sheep any more than the rest, said Gudbrand, for when I got a bit farther I traded away for a goose. Thank you, with all my heart, cried his wife. What shall I do with the sheep? I have no spinning wheel, nor carding comb, nor should I care myself to worry with cutting and shaping and sewing clothes. We can buy clothes now, as we've always done, and now I shall have roast goose, which I have longed for so often, and besides, down with which to stuff my little pillow. Run out, child, and put up the goose. Well, said Gudbrand, I haven't the goose either, for when I went a bit farther I traded it for a cock. Dear me, cried his wife, how you think of everything, just as I should have done myself. A cock, think of that. Why, it's as good as an 8-day clock, for every day the cock crows at 4 o'clock we shall be able to stiff our legs in good time. What shall we do with a goose? I don't know how to cook it, and as for my pillow, I can stuff it with cotton grass. Run out, child, and put up the cock. But after all, I haven't the cock either, said Gudbrand, for when I had gone a bit further I became as hungry as a hunter, and I was forced to sell the cock for a shilling, for fear I should starve. Now God be praised you did so, cried his wife. Whatever you do it always after my own heart. What should we do with the cock? We are our own masters. I should think and can lie abed in the morning as long as we like. Heaven be thanked that I have you safe back again, you who do everything so well, that I want neither cock nor goose, neither pigs nor kine. Then Gudbrand opened the door and said, Well, what do you say now? Have I won the 100 crowns? And his neighbor was forced to admit that he had. From the east of the sun and west of the moon. The end.